Getting into value, there is an infinite amount of variations of value in nature. That's why I put this up. You look at this and you can see the variation, and when you're in nature, it looks overwhelming like this, trying to decide, okay, what's lighter, what's darker. But we have to remember that nature's working with higher math than we are. We don't have the luxury of being able to paint a painting with 1,000 value variations. If you do, what's going to end up happening, I believe, is your composition is going to struggle, your readability is going to struggle, all because you're not holding it with the materials. If you had unlimited materials, God, when he created Earth, he's working with everything. He's got light and he's got mass and form and texture. Everything's there, but we're limited through our pigment with such a small range that we need to reduce things. So when you go out, like I say, this is too much. Okay, what about a reduction like this? You're still reducing values, but we're not all going all the way to white, but you can see it's less to handle, less to look at. What if we bring them together and reduce it to this? So in value and eventually with painting, I'm trying to get us all trained to work in 5 or less values. We'll have more range, up to 10 if we really need them, but I even push myself, can I work in 2 values? Can I work in 3 values? The economy of values is only going to strengthen your design. I know this is hard, but let's take a look at some things and see if we can reduce things to 5 values, okay? So what if we have a scene like this? At first, you might think, wow, that's a lot of color and that's a lot of range, but let's first flip it around. Okay, so it's going the right direction with our values. Let's put them closer so we can see. And pretty quickly, I hope you're noticing, that's bright, but it's not going to white. And this is dark, but it's not going to black. So then I'd submit to you that our values are actually staying in a 3 value range here. In our particular example, there's many more variations, but quickly I can look at this and say, wow, there's only 3 values there. I have room to move on this. I can go darker or lighter if I wanted to. Okay, so now let's get rid of that and take a look at this. How are our values? If we can't see them right away. Now I also want to let you know, there is something in Photoshop, hue saturation, where you're able to reduce the saturation or create subject just in value. But I do want to let you know that I do not think it's completely truthful. I'm sure there's a mathematics to how it's choosing what that value is. But the way we tell value is by squinting. The way I see color is opening my eyes, or even seeing out of my periphery, which we'll discuss. But the way I see value is through squinting. So if you see this change, I'm actually going to do it right now. Yeah, I believe it's going lighter, and it's going lighter in this range right here. If you watch in there as I take that out and squint your eyes, I think it's going up a hair in value. So it's good to know. I mean, I think that hue saturation is great, and it's a great way to read a scene, pull the saturation out, which we'll see. But do know it's not always right on to, I think, what's exactly happening in value. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at these 3 values and pull this into something else. As we were talking about, let's look at the value. What would you say? Okay, does it go to white? Let's do the comparison. Pull the white right there. No, it doesn't go quite to white. Let's bring the black. No, it certainly doesn't go to the black. So we know, once again, it's, in this range, kind of going a little farther this way, but it's still in that range. Okay? So another thing that helps, toning a canvas when we start. What do we want to do? Do we want to start on a white canvas, a black canvas, a mid-tone canvas? And why do you? People talk about it. There's strengths and there's disadvantages to both, I believe. The reason I will work on a white canvas is because the translucency of your transparent paint, as the light comes and hits the canvas, I'll show you, you have a canvas right there, and this sun, let's say that's a sun up here, it's beaming down on this canvas, in the transparent areas, it's beaming in, going through, hitting the white canvas and coming out. So I believe it gives more life to your shadows. Okay, that's the reason to work on a light canvas. The reason to work on a canvas that's toned, a mid-tone, a gray, something like that. I have not yet seen an advantage of working on a canvas that's bright red or bright green. I don't see an advantage of that. Maybe little ticks where you've left canvas showing will somehow pull together harmony, but I think all the disadvantages outweigh what little is accomplished from that. So let's see something. What if we put all that on a gray background? What is the advantage here as we look at this? So you notice very quickly how this white jumps out at you. And this black, it was jumping out on white, but I think to me, I see everything more clearly, because when the canvas is all white, is all this value. So you have a canvas here, and it is all white. Okay, and that's your canvas. And the sun is beaming down on it, though best practice is keeping a canvas in the shade, but sometimes you can't help it. But the sun's beaming down on that canvas, or even if it's in the shade, you're going to have something called simultaneous contrast, which we'll talk about in a minute. And now, instead of coming down and beaming on the canvas and showing you your great transparent color, it's beaming back right into your eyeballs. And it overpowers, it's too much. I'm painting this painting and I put in some values that seem really, really dark because I'm comparing it to white. But if I grab black, I can see that that black was a darker, deeper value. And that it was actually this value that I was putting down. So it plays tricks on your eyes. And same with black would do the reverse. So what do? I do both. I tend to paint on white more because of the advantage, and I paint so quickly that what ends up happening is I'm covering my canvas with these mid values so quickly that maybe within a half hour I've got my canvas totally covered in the correct relationships, that it now doesn't matter as much, because then now when I'm putting in white, I'm able to compare it much better. Okay, so advantage, disadvantage on what you're working on, but the definite advantage is if you have a mid value, you're going to judge all colors far better. I'm constantly doing that when I paint, is trying to decide what those variations are and how they relate to each other. It's all about relationships. Let's take a look at these colors, because a copying machine or on a computer, you're going to be able to see value immediately if you just turn it black and white. But in our world, we're seeing all these colors, and we need to translate them quickly to black and white. So as you look at this, I'm sure you can see that this outside circle is darker than that. Okay, I think that's fairly easy. They're in the same color range, so you can spot that quickly. Maybe, or you should be able to spot that that circle is lighter than this circle. Gets maybe a little tougher on this one. Which one's lighter and which one's darker, the outside or the inside? And this one, or that one, which one is it? And then we're going to go even more extreme and ask the question, where does this circle down here fall? Is it darker or lighter than the inside, the outside, the middle, etc.? And with all of these, how do they fall? So take a look at those. It's always easier to judge value by proximity. So these are way easier to judge because they're touching each other, right? This has, down here, has some distance, so it's going to be harder. Let's do the next thing. As we pull out the value, I think you're quick to say, of course, yeah, this interior circle's lighter, that's lighter, and this is lighter. Though, I want to tell you, take a look at this circle right here compared to the inside compared to the outside. All right, let's pull that saturation off. Do you see how I believe that the mathematics in this is not as good as your eye, or it's doing, someone who knows Photoshop far more than I is going to tell you that maybe you have a bias of what it's choosing to go lighter and what darker. But take a look at that and notice once again in this circle, the inside compared to the outside, that they're way closer than in value than that is showing. Yeah, and this one as well. I can go through each one. But it still helps us see light and dark.